Okay, so my brother is a superhero. Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Himad Orc. That's what it says. It's got a picture of a hammer and a squashed tomato. Hammer and squashed tomato. It was still light when Zack and I snuck out to the treehouse to discuss my findings. I was carrying a bag for life that bulged mysteriously. I'm drawing attention to this because it's going to be important shortly. Zack scampered up the rope ladder and I huffed and puffed behind him. When I reached the top, I sat in the doorway to catch my breath. The sky was the colour of streaky bacon. A breeze blew across the rooftops of the neighbouring houses and rustled the leaves of the oak tree in our garden. We have a tiny garden, just a scrap of lawn, a border with some pink and blue flowers that come out in summer, a shed and a huge oak tree. Dad says in the olden days our street was part of a giant forest full of English oaks. The tree in our garden is the only one left. Bit sad, that. Dad built the tree house for us in the previous summer. And when I say Dad built it, what I mean is that Grandpa built it and Dad stood around in a tool belt with lots of expensive gadgets making helpful suggestions. He's keen on DIY, my dad. That DIY is do it yourself. He's keen on DIY, my dad, but the only thing he's ever successfully nailed to a wall is his thumb. That must hurt. I joined Zack inside and told him everything I discovered about Nemesis. He listened carefully, nodding at my deductions like I was Sherlock Holmes. Ordinarily, my big brother would never listen to anything I had to say, but I'm an expert on superheroes, the ones in comics anyway, and he paid attention to every word. It was nice to be the smarter brother for a change. One more thing, I added. I know how to activate your superpowers. You do? He sounded impressed. I nodded. Yep. You just have to say your secret phrase. Zack's eyes widened. And you know my secret phrase? I entered several factors into the computer. Your name, your known powers, shoe size, and this is what I've come up with. He nodded quickly. Just tell me already. I cleared my throat. Your secret activation phrase is... I paused, like a reality show judge deciding who to put through to the next round. Himad Oak. Zack stood with his legs shoulder width apart and planted his hands on his hips before uttering the words... Himad Orc. That was wrong. Himad Orc. Before uttering the words, Himad Orc, he held his breath and waited. When after a few seconds nothing happened, he shook his head disappointedly. I didn't feel any different. Are you sure it's the right phrase? I stroked my chin. Maybe you're not saying it with enough feeling. Try it again, but this time really mean it and say it over and over. Okay, more feeling, over and over, got it. Zack assumed the same pose. Himad Orc, Himad Orc. As he repeated the phrase, it became clear what he was really actually saying. I'm a dork, I'm a dork, I couldn't hold a snigger any longer. Zack's mouth froze in the shape of an O as he realised I'd tricked him. He glowered at me and said, if you're going to act like a child, then I'm leaving. He marched out and put a foot on the top rung of the rope ladder. No, don't go. I promise I won't do anything childish again. From now on, it's serious scientific investigation. You promise? I put a hand on my heart. Promise. He moved back inside and I waved at him to stop. Now, stand there. I said, reaching into my bag for life. "And don't move." "Why do you want me to stand?" "Hey!" He ducked as a tomato whistled over his head, landing with a splat against the wall behind him. "What do you think you're doing?" I detected a note of irritation in his voice, but ignored it. Dug once more into my bag and drew out a clipboard and a rock. Zack had a force field, and we had to know how powerful it was. Clearly, the easiest way to find out was to throw things at him. The bag concealed my battery of test objects. How can I put this? I weighed the rock in my hand, tossed it up and down in my palm a few times, and threw it hard at him. He ducked once more, and the rock thudded against the wall. I let out a huff of irritation. "How am I meant to test your force field if you keep ducking?" I made a note on the clipboard. Tomato and rock, inconclusive. Zack started to get the picture. "I see. Okay, that makes sense, I guess." He nodded towards my bag. "Well, sir, what else have you got in there?" I'd been saving the best for last. With a grin, I reached in with both hands and lifted out a lump hammer. It was one of Dad's. He has several of them. It's about seven of them in his shed, all polished and lined up in a rack in size of order. This one was the biggest. I call it Thor's hammer. It had a hickory handle and a 3-kilogram steel head. Big lump. "No way," Zack protested, flapping his hands in a frankly unheroic manner. "You're not throwing that thing at me." "Of course I'm not going to throw it, idiot." Zack relaxed. "It's much too heavy to throw." I smiled thinly. "So I'm going to swing it at you." Before he could object, I drew the hammer back behind me and then with all my strength swung it in a long arc at my brother. Zack's protective field deflected the flat steel head like someone flicking a piece of fluff off their sleeve. The hammer rebounded, jarring my hands with a shuddering vibration, so violent that I lost my grip. It flew narrowly over my head, straight out of the open door, and tumbled from sight. From somewhere in the undergrowth below, there was a thud, followed by a strangled meow. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," I winced. "I think it was Mrs. Wilson's cat." "No, not that," said Zack, closing his eyes tightly. "That." I strained to listen, but all I could hear was the wind in the oak tree. "I don't hear anything," I began, and then realized what that must mean. "You have super hearing." Zack frowned. "Sort of, although it's more like a radar in my head. When I close my eyes, I see this glowing green circle that sweeps round and round, and whenever there's a person or an object of interest, they light up, and then I can see and hear them. It's not high definition. All I can make out is a blurry outline." He blanched. "Uh-oh." "What?" "Someone's in distress." I cringed. Maybe Mrs. Wilson found her cat. A peculiar expression came over Zack, and his cheeks flushed as red as the tomatoes sliding gently down the wall. "It's not Mrs. Wilson," he said, his voice going up and down like a roller coaster. "Then who is it?" But Zack didn't hang around to reply. In a flash, he was out of the door, taking the rope ladder 3 rungs at a time. I scrabbled after him as fast as my flat feet would allow. He bounded down the path that ran along the side of our house, out towards Moore Street. I expected to find him fighting off a giant robot with laser beam eyes or a slimy green horde. But when I got there, a minute later, Zack was nowhere to be seen. And instead of robots or aliens, there was something much more fearsome.